Hello, everybody. How are you doing today, my friends? Today we have a wonderful guest. His name is Norman Plotkin. Awesome dude. We talk about hypnosis, the collective conscious, tarot cards, a couple other things. We get into a little spiritualness, and we didn't even I was actually wanting to talk to him about hypnosis, but it sounds like he'll come on later on in the future. So we'll actually get our answer for hypnosis. Other than that, awesome dude. The start's going to be a little choppy because I couldn't figure out a good spot to cut out and start. So bear with it. Give it like 5 minutes and then we're going to get into some good stuff. All right. Enjoy. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Bit of a harrowing morning this morning.
I bet. What happened?
Well, in California,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where you are, but in California, it doesn't weather very much. And when it weathers,
It's extreme. Yeah, I'm in California too.
okay, the wind's blowing super hard. So just getting out of my driveway, I have a big wooden gate that I rarely close, so I've tied it back. And I grew up on a ranch. I know how to tie stuff. I know
Right.
it blew closed, and then the locking mechanism was jammed. I had to kick it. I had to tie it back. It's pouring down rain. The wind is blowing me over. So just getting out of my driveway was an adventure, right? So then of course, on the freeway, California, a little bit of rain. They like, yeah, so, and then add to that the wind's blowing really hard. And so there were Newsomville homeless encampments that had blown across the freeway. You know what I mean? So there's these.
I haven't heard that one before.
Newsomville. I grew up watching the Little Rascals and the Three Stooges, and King World Productions was the production company, and it was in LA. It was KCOP 13, and the shows from the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
They had these Hoovervilles, what they were called, and they're little shanty towns that were everywhere because of the Depression. And so,
Right.
when I drive around Sacramento, there's tens of thousands of homeless encamped near the freeway mostly, but everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
LA's even, an exponential number more.
Oh, yeah. And they're getting ballsy now. They're just camping on the sidewalk because they can't remove them.
I know, right? So my girlfriend has an acupuncture clinic and downtown Sacramento, and the cops won't do anything. And so they were in front of her. And I said, when the cops came and didn't do anything, she called me. And so I came up, I said, I'm not the cops.
And they're like, oh shit.
Exactly. Exactly. And I moved them. I said, there's an alley behind, there's the overpass across the street. Okay. Go make yourself comfortable there. You're scaring our patients and I will remove you. And so, anyway, so my motorcycle, it takes me 20 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm.
My 30-minute car commute was closer to 60 this morning. And so anyway.
Confirms my theory. Anything in California, if it's that, just add 30 minutes and then you're about right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So other than your pretty much hero's tale of a morning, any events over the weekend that were good?
Oh yeah. On Saturday evenings, I lead a virtual meditation by Zoom.
Okay.
And, I'm partnering with my girlfriend who's an acupuncturist, and right now we're doing meditations on the various traditional Chinese medicine meridians. And so that's a lot of fun. And we do that Saturday night. Saturday, I had some interesting clients. And it's always interesting who you attract.
Yes.
Everyone, we're all advertising. We're all out there putting ourselves out there. I'm on all the social media, run Google ads, and I've got, I'm not an influencer. It's really hard to speak into the fisheye. I'm a guy who can stand in front of 5,000 and speak. I was a lobbyist. So the fisheye is a little weird, but I do have a few videos out there that it helps people kind of get to know who you are. And fortunately, I get the opportunity to jump on other people's platforms and like this. So it's really interesting who I'm attracting right now. I've got a number of psychologists who are coming to see me for hypnotherapy, which is, it's kind of reinforcement. When those who are trained rely on you to help the helpers, it's kind of, it's kind of shot in the arm. So, and of course, the more intricate and difficult the thing, the more I'm attracted to it.
Yes.
It's a little bit of ego that I have left, right? That, I came from that lobbying world, and I was one giant ego. And then I went through this spiritual awakening and to reduce the ego, but, it remains, and it's good to have. I mean, we're supposed to have an ego, it's a little, but it can't rule us. But at any rate, my ego is relegated to now wanting to help the toughest cases. I've got a client who's she's almost 50 and she's no longer ovulating and she wants to become pregnant. I'm like, that's a tall order.
That's a really tall order.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but
exactly.
It's interesting.
It's and she said, well, what do you mean by that? Don't rain on my picnic. I mean, well, I'm not raining on your picnic. I'm just telling you that if we're successful at this, I'm going to take some serious credit.
I am going to actually say I did this. No, I don't blame you. Yeah, it's not impossible. I've heard of stories, but it is very slim.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't want to carry someone else's fertilized egg. She wants her egg to be fertilized. And I said, well, first you must assume an egg.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's fun stuff like that,
That's awesome. So I kind of like the energy as it is. Let's keep going. Tell us more about yourself, Norman.
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist, an author, a coach. I didn't always do this. I've been at it for about 7 years. Prior to that, I was a lobbyist, and I had a 25-year career in and around state government in Sacramento. I was on my way to law school, and I realized I didn't need to go into law. I didn't need to go into Hawk for $80,000 to go to McGeorge like everybody else was. I could, be in and around lawmaking without all of that. And so it was great. I started as a clerk. I had, growing up on a ranch, I was in Future Farmers of America, and I was on the parliamentary procedure team. In fact, I was the president of the Parley Pro team. And so I knew Robert's Rules of Order. So when I became the clerk, so I had transferred to Sac State from community college in Southern California because that's where government was. I wanted to be a government major. They call it political science or poli-sci everywhere else. In Sacramento, it's called government. And the first semester in, I landed a paid internship as a clerk in the state assembly. And
nice.
And I was hired right out of the internship because, like I said, I knew parliamentary procedure. And I had a speaking role on the floor. The only non-member who could speak on the floor is the reading clerk. I read the bills and operated the electronic vote system, and it was a great springboard. From there, I became a rules committee consultant, and then I ran campaigns 1 year, a couple of years, and then I came back and I did again the floor consulting, and then I became the insurance committee, and then the health committee consultant, and then I was hired by the Medical Association to be a lobbyist. And I lobbied for the Medical Association for a couple of years, and then I went out on my own and was a contract lobbyist, had my own lobbying firm, made a lot of money.
I think so.
Yeah, I love the public policy and the strategy, but it's dirty. Politics is dirty, and it's sophomoric, and it made me sick. I had cancer, and I had papillary carcinoma, which is thyroid cancer, which is your throat chakra, which energetically, that is your voice in the world. And I didn't have mine. I spoke for others. I couldn't write a letter to the editor and express my own sentiments because that might bear poorly on a client. So anyway, that began a whole new journey. And that was 10 years ago. I had a radical thyroidectomy, a lymph node resection, 2 rounds of radiation. And at first I just wanted to get back to normal. And then I realized that normal was what made me sick. So
right.
teachers began to appear, and I went in a whole new direction. I moved to LA for a while. And at first, I took a job as the executive director of a trade association, which was kind of more of the same. And that lasted a year before, I turned them around. I brought them into the 21st century, redid their website, professionalized their operations. And then I went to work on their ethics. Oops, they didn't renew my contract. And now I'm like, now what? Right. So I was divinely guided to go to in LA, there's a nationally accredited school of hypnotherapy. And I was in LA, right? So I saw a psychic. I saw a psychic to try and figure out what's going on, what is going on. Because I was having these experiences. I'm kind of sensitive, and I've experienced all of the clairs, which is clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairgustance. I've smelled, heard, tasted, and seen things that, and I was a Marine, and I grew up on a ranch riding bulls and breaking horses. That stuff was woo-woo, foo-foo,
Right.
But if you deny your gifts, it's another contributing factor to becoming sick. So I began to open up, and she taught me about the archangels. She's guided me to a Hay House conference in Pasadena, where I saw Wayne Dyer speak, and Carolyn Meese and Joe Dispenza.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I've just kind of opened my mind to a whole new world, and teachers began to appear. I read all of those people's books and more, Deepak Chopra. And I wrote a letter to Archangel Michael. Dear Archangel Michael, it's Norm here. I got mad skills. People have paid me millions. I want to help other kinds of people now, regular people, but I don't know how. Please guide me to be in the service of others, not corporations and politicians. And I, very truly yours, signed my name, took it in the backyard, lit it on fire.
All right, that works.
Yeah. Then I went in the house and I did 20 minutes of japa meditation, where you chant Namo Narayana, Namo Narayana, Namo Narayana, and my chest is just resonating. I'm sitting there in my darkened bedroom. And then at the end of the 20 minutes, you stop and you cool down and be quiet and still for 10 minutes. And I'm sitting there, and I sense the most amazing energetic presence come down the hallway through my closed door and stand right next to me. And I'm like, I'm afraid to open my eyes. And then I was made to understand that there was no reason to be afraid, and just feel the power. And I'm like, And then just as quickly as it arrived, it was gone. And I opened my eyes and looked around. And then I called my friend Laura, who was the psychic. And I said, Laura, what was that? You won't believe it. She said, wait, you wrote a letter to Archangel Michael. You did 20 minutes of japa meditation, and the most amazing energetic power you have ever experienced showed up, and you don't know who it was?
I want to say I could have put two and two together.
I was just in awe of the whole thing, and I wasn't thinking. And then when at her prompting, I put two and two together and realized that. And so within a week, I was guided divinely, I believe, to go to the only nationally accredited school of hypnotherapy, which just happened to be in the valley near where I was living. And so that's when it all kind of began. I had to straddle two worlds. For a while, I took a job covering 16 Western states for a former automotive aftermarket company as a lobbyist, and that was fun. I was in state capitals from New Mexico to Hawaii. I never made it to Alaska, although I covered.
Oh, bummer.
I know, but a lot of Denver, a lot of Salem, and
Salem. Interesting.
Yeah. So I did that for a while, and I would do hypnotherapy around the shoulders, right? So when I wasn't actively involved in that, nights and weekends, and sneak sessions in during the day, because I was working remotely. And then I wrote my first book, Take Charge of Your Cancer. And I ditched that job and was really focused, got my book written. Then I went to work for my publisher. And for 2 years, I was acquisition editor for the Author Incubator. And that was a great experience. A lot of coaching, a lot of people from the coaching world come through that and write books to augment their offering and whatnot. So I learned a lot. And then after my father passed, actually my mom and my dad, I was in position to care for both of them at the end of their life. And it was, what a privilege, and feel like I fulfilled a soul contract. Had I been that self-important lobbyist, I wouldn't have had the time to do that. So the universe, put me in the right place. And I cared for both of my parents. I finished my book. And then I just launched. I moved back to Sacramento to be closer to my kids. And I launched, and I'm full-time, and I've been full-time. I launched in 2020.
Hey, it's a good time to do it though.
Well, if ever there's a difficult year to start business, it's the year that, a pandemic breaks out. But for hypnotherapy, there's a lot of people triggered by this. And so, so while I've been doing hypnosis and hypnotherapy for 7 years, and I've eclipsed the 10,000 hour mark, which Gladwell says, 10,000 hours to mastery. I'm in it now and doing nothing else. And so, but there's parts of that I coach and I speak, but it's all part of my hypnotherapy practice. And so I'm just completing year 2 of all in, both feet, and I'm loving it, and I'm expanding my practice, and I'm helping throngs of people with, all of whom have interesting, and most of whom have tried everything else first.
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
Yeah. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
There's so much to unpack there. I love it. So tell me, you've mentioned it a few times. I want to get into this first, then we can get into the hypnotherapy later on. The divine intervention, the psychic stuff. One of my friends, we don't talk right now because I don't work at her site anymore, but she was super into divine energy, tarot cards, all that stuff, and she was learning her tarot cards. So I was like, hey, for practice, read my thing, like, kind of thing. And I didn't even tell her what I was thinking. And she read it, and it was one of those, she's like, this is a really shitty hand though. And I'm like, well, you don't know what I'm asking. So, and so she read it, and I was like, wow, literally I've told no one about this, and it literally just said it. So I'm like, man, it's either like some higher power, or that was a really lucky draw.
Luck has nothing to do with it. The cards are perfect every time,
right?
Because it's a gateway. It's an avenue to the collective consciousness. So, I studied under this psychic. Her name is Laura Powers, and she's fantastic and amazing. And I studied the psychic development, and because I've had these experiences. Too numerous and too detailed to go into.
It would take another podcast just to explain it.
Exactly. But just suffice to say, like I was asked impromptu, having no knowledge beforehand, but I drove, 3.5, 4 hours to get to my best friend in high school's funeral. And I get there, and I'm late, and the pastor's just finishing up and then says, the family would like someone to say a few words, Norman. And I'm like, wait, what? I don't have any prepared, but I didn't say that. I got up and I spoke, and I had that 4-hour drive to reflect on my friend Greg. And because I was in speech and debate, and because I've done extemporaneous speaking, and because I was a lobbyist and had to be good on my feet in any moment,
right?
I put together 3 things and about this guy, 3 stories that I told. And the unifying theme that he was very sweet. He was a sweet guy, which was, if you didn't know him, you wouldn't look at this guy and say, what a sweet guy.
Yeah. More of like a rough around the edges. Like,
yeah. He'd been in the Army, a cop in construction, but for those who knew him, everyone there knew exactly what, and as I was saying this, a sweet taste came into my mouth, and I knew he was there with me.
That's awesome.
And that's just one of just so many. I've seen, I've heard, I've tasted, I've smelled. So I'm like, what does this mean? Am I going crazy? Am I nuts? If you don't have a context for it. So then, after I wrote my book and I was caring for my mom in the last year of her life, she'd lost her sight and whatnot. I was introduced to a psychologist, a PhD, a Jungian analyst named Dr. Art Rosengarten, who's written 5 books on tarot and psychology.
Interesting.
And I couldn't learn tarot from a hippie in the park on a blanket, although there's nothing wrong with hippies in the park on blankets.
There's not.
Yeah, but I just needed I needed to learn it from someone else. And so I studied under Dr. Rosengarten, and I added tarot to the esoteric things that I do to help people. It's just your connection to the collective consciousness. So it's a very Jungian aspect, and the archetypes are expressed in the cards. The cards developed in the times before and during the Middle Ages, when esoteric knowledge was driven underground because the church was burning, and
they were burning them left and right. Yeah,
burning people. And so esoteric knowledge was something. If you were someone like Galileo, you don't dare challenge the
system.
That's right, and the orthodoxy of the church or the system or whatever. And so, if the system says the sun revolves around the earth, then that's what the system says, right? And you don't dare go. So the cards were the esoteric knowledge that was driven underground, and it's our connection to the collective conscious. So, we know we don't need to be told when we're born that snake is dangerous and creepy, right? We just know. You see a snake, you're like,
danger.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just one example. So, say when.
Now. Okay.
So your card is the Tower, which is upheaval, destruction.
That's too funny. Okay.
Yeah. The good part about the Tower card is this little right here. You emerge with a laser-like focus.
That's crazy, because I'm actually working. One of my guests I had on Saturday, he's working with me right now to go full-time within 6 months, full-time podcaster, coach, and all that. So that's interesting. That card came up.
The Tower is it's radical and immediate change, sudden awakening, crumbling within, attack from the outside. Time to abandon ship, seeking a safe harbor with laser-like intensity. So it's indicative of a major transition that you're going through right now. So see how it works?
That's crazy.
So I began to explore esoterica. I had an interest in it, and but anchored in the light and the divine and the creator, and because there are forces in all directions, and it's important when you open channels to subtle knowledge that you're very grounded. A great place to start is the 7 Hermetic principles.
What's that?
There are 7 principles that are postulated by Hermes, which is Hermes Trismegistus. It's a hard one. Anyway, and these 7 principles guide the world. Correspondence, as above, so below.
Okay.
Polarity. Love and hate are they're on the same continuum. They're just at different ends. Everything is energy. Everything vibrates. Check them out. The 7 Hermetic principles. It's worth Google. And, you can spend a lot of time studying Hermes and this stuff, but having a cursory understanding of it is really powerful. I mean, we're going through a time right now Does anybody need to be told that it's a tumultuous time? But if you understand that we're moving from Pisces, where we lived in schools like a fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Schooling, but it was marked by the patriarchy and conflict and duality. And we're moving into Aquarius, which is energy, feminine, cooperation, collaboration, from materialism and Newtonian mechanics into the quantum field and energy. And so I've looked upon this with great anticipation, thinking unicorns and rainbows. And
Okay.
I forgot that transitions can be difficult. I mean, back to speech and debate, always smooth, one body into the other with a smooth transition, because you don't want to hurt and jerk people along. You want them to follow your speech and not be disruptive. And so too are transitions in society and culture. It's more like plate tectonics and a subduction zone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's what we're experiencing right now. Old institutions, everything is dying. And it's in the death throes. And those who are at the helm of the old world are a little panicky, and they're acting in desperation. And I mean, look around. It's not just the US. People are marching in the streets in Spain and all over Europe.
Everywhere. Oh, well, except China, because they keep trying to kill them, but they would be too.
No, they are. We just don't see it.
Oh, yeah, the extreme censorship. Same with North Korea.
Yeah. I saw a statistic from someone else citing the dark web, because I don't venture there because I'm not a computer.
It's scary.
Yeah,
I accidentally went there once.
If you're not a computer guy, they'll like own you. So don't go.
Much.
Right? It's a no man's zone unless you're a nerd, and then I hope you're a good nerd. Otherwise, they'll own you too. But anyway, there is something like hundreds of revolutionary acts being carried out in China all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kill them and sweep them under they harvest their organs. Anyway, my girlfriend is Chinese. She was born in China. She's a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine. And none of her friends they don't like the CCP. And they laugh at Americans who believe the news. They're like, you guys believe the news? Everybody in China knows the news is propaganda. Anyway, the world is changing, and there's revolution afoot, and it's interesting. For a guy like me, I was born in 1964, and my dad was in World War II. I had older siblings. I listened to the big band era records as a kid. And so from 1945 to 1995, there was 50 years of radical incrementalism. Life from the Eisenhower era of good feelings and optimism incrementally changed. Of course, there was a flare up in the 60s. There was a little bit of fomentation of revolution. But for the most part, cars changed just a little bit. Airplanes changed just a little bit. Then there was a digital watch, and then there was a calculator, and then a microwave oven. But all just kind of incrementalism. And then 1995 and the internet and the Internet of Things and Netscape and everything changed. So, and I was an early adopter. I had my own webpage. People were like, wow, you got a webpage? I'm like, the guy who lives next door to me is a computer guy. I just got my AOL CD in the mail, and I downloaded it, got on access to the internet, and then downloaded Netscape, and then got an account with trying to remember some techno sounding QuickNet. Yeah, QuickNet was the local ISP. I got an account with them. I had Netscape and ditched AOL, and off I went. Right, and so. But the internet changed everything, and now we're layers into the internet, and it's getting kind of ugly. But that's going to blow up too. So anyway, back to esoterica. the there's subtle knowledge. I don't own a television, and I'm very selective about what I expose myself to on the internet. Gaia.com, fantastic place. It's I think $100 a year to belong. And I watch shows like Dr. Teresa Bullard's Mystery Teachings, Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza. There's this awesome stuff on there. There's some wacky stuff too, but you got to be discerning. And so, I learned about the ancient mystery schools and the ancient mystery teachings, and that over the threshold of the ancient mystery schools was the term temetnoski, which means know thyself. And this is kind of the foundation for people who come to see me as a hypnotherapist. I introduce them to their inner world and help them understand that the outer world is illusion. And if you want to have an impact, if you want to influence the outer world, first you must know thyself and work on your inner world. And so, if you were invited to attend a mystery school in the early days, the first 3 years you weren't allowed to talk. Sit down and shut up and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a time when people didn't live as long as they live now. So 3 years is like an eternity.
It really was.
Yeah. And so massive amounts of wisdom were available to those who, and they are today too, but we get swept up in 24/7 connectivity, and we've been seduced by the powers that be to, sports, Hollywood. Not that there's anything wrong with entertainment and culture. It's just the way that people are, there's mass hypnosis. And oftentimes people come in to see me and I have to dehypnotize them.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I've told people, because everyone's like, oh, you live under a rock, Josh. I'm like, I like it because every time I use Instagram, recently my Instagram, I unfollowed, I didn't unfollow, but I muted all their stories because I knew if I looked at it too long, I'd get FOMO, and then I'd be like, what's going on? And I literally start shaking like this. And then I knew consciously, I'm like, whether it's active or not, I'm rewiring my brain to only look at this. So same with, I was using TikTok, but I got rid of it because it was the same thing. I just couldn't stop looking.
I know. It's sad, but true. There's fear porn. It's like the people rubbernecking on the freeway to see the blood in an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Can't help ourselves. We're inquisitive, and we're, as humans, we engage in pattern matching, and so we're looking. And so when we see something that reinforces our point of view, we're drawn to it. I'm the opposite. If there are people queued up, I'm going the other direction. That clam chowder can't be that good. And if so, I'm going to sneak in when no one else. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like, I joke that I deviate from the norm.
Well, what is normal? That's subjective. And it's,
Deepak Chopra in Quantum Healing, in his book Quantum Healing, talks about that no one's right and no one's wrong. Everyone's just coming from their own personal set of circumstances and understanding, and that doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them them. And when I first read it, I'm like, BS. I'm calling BS. That's moral relativism. But in the end, it's true. It's true. Everything is subjective. The truth is objective, but there are very few truisms. I'll tell you one truism. The truth does not fear a question.
Yeah. I don't see many arguments coming up from that statement.
And so that big tech is censoring.
Yeah, but they've been doing this since the beginning. It's just now it's obvious, especially with COVID.
I know shadow banning has been going on for a while and whatnot, but no, in the beginning, they argued for wide openness, and they got the 203, the 302 or the 203 exemption from.
I thought it was 2-3. So yeah, I know what you're going for.
Yeah, there's an exemption from being a publisher, and so, so, you know, there are three things that can't be hidden: the sun, the moon, and
the truth.
So I'm engaged. I'm bringing it down to the person level. I used to be all up in that. CNN used to be on all the time in my house on 4 different televisions because I was in politics and I had to know what was being said and what was being done and whatnot. I don't own a television now, but I bring it down to the person level. What's going on in your life? What was going on in your life when this started? Let me tell me about your childhood, your family structure. Mom and dad still alive? Are they together? How many siblings? Any bitter disappointments? Any traumas? And when I do this on a personal level, the same thing that made me a good analyst and consultant and lobbyist makes me a good therapist, because I start connecting dots and I come to conclusions that were right in front of them and they never saw. And they're like, wow, how come I didn't see that? I'm like, you're too close. No, I'm not brilliant. I just pay attention. And having done it more than 10,000 hours with thousands of people, I hate to break it to you, but you're human, and you're having a very human experience, and you're not predictable, but you are human. So, and then once we get past all of that, they open up and they're able to overcome their blocks, their blind spots, their well-worn paths and patterns that keep them stuck. And so that's what I love about, without pills, without surgery, without invasive techniques.
So what are some of the major blocks you see in people with your hypnotherapy?
Well, there's a thing called secondary gain.
Okay.
And it's just a way of describing that people hold on to their maladaptive behavior because it serves them in some form or fashion. Okay. So a real simple example, illustration of that is the person who gets on Facebook and posts about their diverticulitis. Are they doing anything have they changed their diet? Are they following doctor's orders to, be on a diet that helps them overcome that or whatever? No. But they post on Facebook and they feel good because they get 1,000 likes and prayer warriors and prayer chains. And for a moment, it elevates them from the doldrums of their well-worn path in life. And so that's just a simple illustration, an example, secondary gain. The other is like an inner protector. Migraines are a big example of this, but there's others. Autoimmune disease is another example. I see a lot of this, and I've helped a lot of people reverse autoimmune disease because they exhibit these symptoms. They go to the doctor. This doctor says, symptom, autoimmune. Here's some pills. All I can do is help you reduce the pain. They don't know what to do. I say, what was going on in your life when it started? Let's explore that. And so this inner protector, when in the face of difficult emotional pain, because what we do is, if I say, why do you do that? And you say, 10 years ago, this happened. Well, you don't remember exactly what happened. In fact, you would recount it incorrectly.
Probably.
You remember how it made you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had an experience, it gave you a feeling. The feeling created neurochemistry in your body, and you imprinted that in your body. So now you have this imprint of that feeling. And now in the future, you're going to act in a certain way based on the imprint of that feeling.
Right.
So now you're living a predictable future based on an unreliable past that's robbing you of your precious present moment. It's from Dr. Joe Dispenza. I wish I could take credit for that, but I just learned it really well from him, and I use it with everybody because it's powerful. When people understand it and recognize it, it makes change in their life, positive change. And so So you have this experience and it creates this neurochemistry and makes an imprint in your body. And if you don't resolve the emotions that are around that imprint, it's going to wreak havoc in your life. Those repressed emotions, the subconscious is aware of them at all times, even if you're not aware of them consciously. And it's like the grain of sand in an oyster, creating that irritation, and the oyster secretes, and the oyster product is a pearl, which is beautiful. Not so much when
during the process to make it, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a great deal of discomfort. And so perhaps it can be an oyster in your experience if you see the signs, understand the meaning and the message of that discomfort, and make change. Very few people can without help. And so what they'll do is they'll create this diversion, this smokescreen, this backfire.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll create this migraine headache so they don't have to feel the emotional pain. So now it's like, this migraine headache. Suddenly that wrenching feeling in their gut. Remember when you were a kid, giving somebody a Hertz donut?
Oh, yeah.
You want a Hertz donut? Bam, you punch them, Hertz donut. And it's like a diversion. It's a diversion. So they bring on this migraine, and the autoimmune too. You got these pains in your extremities or your back, and suddenly you don't have to worry about that bitter divorce and custody battle
because you're in pain right now, so you can't focus on that.
That's right. The focus goes to the pain, and so again, there's secondary gain. So you gotta help them understand that it might be a little painful to let this go at first. But the great thing about hypnotherapy is the law of opposites. You can't be relaxed and anxious at the same time. So after they've been taken into trance a few times and they feel how relaxing it is, I can help them bring up this pain and let it go and realize. So the subconscious mind, they may be guarding against something that's long gone, years, but the subconscious mind is always, still guarding against the pain of that perhaps eventuality, never understanding that it's long gone. The person who caused the pain maybe even be dead. And yet you're guarding against it, and you're holding stiff. And so this is the weight loss. People come in for weight loss, and and they've tried diets, and it's that last 10 pounds that they can't. Mike, no diet is going to help you with that. It's emotional pain. This is a layer of protecting you from the outside world. No diet is going to help you do that. You have to let go of this pain. You have to face it, understand it can't hurt you any longer, and decide that you're going to go out and face the world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. That I'm going to say most people I've talked to, because I was doing martial arts and lifting for a long time, COVID kind of messed that up, but it was one of those, I lost a lot of weight, but it was that 10 pounds, and people like, oh my God, you're so close to 6-pack. And me being me, I said the answer, but I didn't hear what I was saying. This is my new thing now. If I say something to someone, it's actually what I need to do, kind of thing. So I take note of it. Exactly. And it's one of those, I just told him but I have so much stress, kind of a messed up childhood. Kind of like, and now looking back, I'm like, you dumbass, you just gave yourself the answer to them.
I do it all the time. It's super important that we listen to ourselves. Being quiet and still and listening. Prayer is when we talk to the divine. Meditation is when we receive information. And sometimes it flows through us. Do you think that was your idea? Or perhaps it was that inner self, that higher self.
That was just like, we'll sneak it in here, see if he cashes it.
That's right. So I mentioned earlier about the inner world.
Mm-hmm.
When you're so sure of who you are and what you're about, no person's bad behavior or words is ever going to mess with you. I call it unfuckwithable.
I like it.
I hope I can say that.
I'll just put the explicit on. We're good to go.
Okay. I figured you might fix it in post. At any rate, because it's not our powerlessness that we're afraid of. It's our power, and we are powerful. That's Brene Brown. I always give attribution to the people who I learn things from, because there's some powerful teachers out there. It's our power that we're afraid of, and we hold ourselves back. And
But,
so
okay, just a side note, do you think it's the conditioning from the school, though, to teach us to be mindless units for the working force?
Yeah.
Okay. That's been my theory, but there's not many I can just be like, so.
Yeah. We're referred to as automatons.
Right.
And that's what institutional education was all about, was getting people ready to be good little factory workers. And
for the time, like during the Industrial Revolution, yeah, you didn't want a person getting a creative idea and leaving the thing, because who's going to put the tire to the axle kind of thing. Yep. Now it's like, you have robots for that. Let us be creative and be ourselves kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Education is on. There are so many institutions that are on the deathbed of, they will not continue. Hollywood, done as it currently exists. Organized, professional sports, they're either going to have to adapt or die.
I don't think they're fully going to die off, but it's not going to be.
I know.
Because there's a lot of people I work with currently that they're like, if we have to pay $600 for a ticket, we'll do it.
I know, and they'll buy the jerseys and wear them around. There are those people, but it's not enough of them to anyway. It needs to change. Education also, and medicine. Medicine isn't faring very well through this whole thing.
It's kind of proven itself actually anti-productive.
Exactly, because when you rely on someone. I mean, what happened to informed consent? What happened to medical privacy? I'm not telling you. People come in and ask me about my status. I'm like, well, you want me to go tell everybody out on the street what we just talked about with you? You don't get to know my personal medical information. And then they assume that answer tells them something, and they may or may not be okay with that, and that's fine. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those, like, for me, I don't blast it. Like, there's a few coworkers I know that are like, oh, I'm vaccinated. I'm like, that's great. That's good for you. If it's like, if my boss asks me my status to keep me employed, sure, I'll tell him. But he's not going to go put me on blast. I know you're going to go tell everyone and their mother, kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. These are interesting times. I used to say that, and then I realized it's a Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's the proverb of the Chinese farmer who one day his horse runs away, and his friends are like, oh, he said, maybe. The next day, the horse comes back with 4 following him. They're like, hey, he's like, maybe. The next day, his son goes out to break one of those new horses, gets bucked off and breaks his leg. They're like, oh, he's like, maybe. And then the next day, the army comes by to conscript young men. They can't take the son because he has a broken leg. They're like, yay. He's like, maybe. So, I mean, the moral to that is
stay true neutral.
Yeah. Resist the peaks and valleys. And when you figure that out, let me know. But, because I have really high highs, and I've learned to, I have smoothed it out over time. But if you like the big high, then you got to be prepared to, crawl under a rock for a little while. That's okay. Regroup. Now, modern medicine would call you bipolar and try and give you some pills. And I'm like, no, I'm right.
That's what happened to me. That was the bit of the shitty childhood. Because the internet wasn't built out the way it is. My parents had the internet today. None of this would have happened. But essentially, they're like, it was just an ADHD kid. I was super happy. Then, because I whipped up, law of what must go up must come down. So I was really sad and lethargic within an hour or two. So they're like, oh, he's bipolar. So they pretty much said to my mom, you either medicate him or he's not allowed to be here anymore.
What?
I was pre-PC, super PC. I guess it was back then, but it was very niche groups. And so, yeah. So one of this whole route, I had to take Ritalin as a kid, which is essentially meth. And I was trying to peel my skin off because I'm like, Mom, there's bugs under me. Why is there bugs in my skin? So, after 3 days of that, she's like, no more. Then it was 1 or 2 more side the ones that you have to test with the system. And I'm one of those extra two. At a young age, I essentially gained like 80 pounds in like 3 months. And that's where the messed up part for me kicks in, because I wasn't told this till I was like 22. That was actually the drugs that made me fat, not myself. I believed I was the fat one. I was the problem. Self-esteem was just completely destroyed. Now I'm rebuilding it, but yeah. And then a few other side projects, like things that came up, but that was the main one, because this is where I actually like talking to you, because during that upheaval of the medicine and regime, I live in I don't want to give the actual city away. So I went to school in a very Hispanic area. And essentially I was the only white boy on campus. Like literally you look out and a sea of brown and there's a white spot and you're like, that's Josh. And essentially I was, relatively speaking, every day being within an inch of my life, because I was a white boy and I'm the problem why daddy doesn't have a job. Well, that's why daddy's in jail, is because you're white.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, actually I haven't said this story before. Essentially I'm bloodied up, bruised everywhere, and I'm looking at this willow tree that looks like a bonsai tree, and I just cursed it. I'm like, fuck you, like kind of like the why didn't you do anything, like cursing the god and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those, I've fixed a lot of problems, but that one I can't seem to fix.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's I go with everyone I see. I go to childhood. There's a story.
yeah,
You're in hypnosis from 0 to 8.
pretty much. Yeah, that's when you're most impressionable too.
Yeah, I mean you're completely suggestible to those who are in your sphere of influence, and you mirror and match them. So when you presented with hyperactivity, your parents need only look in the mirror. I mean, you're just reflecting what they did in front of you and what they fed you. It's like, yeah, it's, and blaming the kid is really messed up. And so I'm not bagging on your parents, but it's what society teaches, my parents read Dr. Spock and they were like a bowl of Jello in terms of direction for me. I wish they'd have pushed me. I really regret not going. I went in the Marine Corps after high school because I couldn't, because school was so easy for me. I was bored stiff.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't imagine sitting in a classroom for 4 more years with those doldrums. I wanted adventure.
Exactly.
So, but, they would argue that, look how I turned out. I remember I was a Republican staffer, and we were at the Republican convention, and the CTA, the California Teachers Association, had a booth. And we went, we were just young Turks who argue with anybody. Anything that wasn't nailed down, we're going to come argue. And so we go, and at the end, this guy, he said, well, I appreciate your position on public education, but I'm pretty proud of how you turned out. And he just pulled the rug right out from under us. I was like, where'd you go to school? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I think we did something right, because you're a pretty solid individual. And, through a backhanded compliment, he won the argument. And so, so
those are usually the best tactics, though.
Yeah. You keep your powder dry, let the young guy get it all out. And once, is that all you got? Okay, well, here, now I'm going to close the door on you. Right. So anyway, I can't change anything because I really love where I am right now. Can't change anything. The mistakes and all of it. So
just curious, how long do I got you? I'm just realizing we're coming up on an hour.
Yeah. I have, let's see. I don't have any. 10:30 is when my next thing is. So
cool.
We got another 15, 20 minutes if you want.
Sweet. Because I'm going to say, I want to get into some of the hypnotherapy aspect too.
Yeah.
So then what would be some of the protocols you do for all that? you probably get a baseline, figure out their personality, and then what is it like the classic like the crystal, or is it more like you getting sleepy, breathing slower kind of thing?
So everyone is an individual, and I treat them all with unconditional positive regard.
Okay.
It's a Rogerian principle. They come in, I get to know them, just like when I was managing Little League. Every one of those little kids, I learned their personality and who they were, and I played them according to, and so they felt good, and they had a really good experience because they felt seen and heard and known. I do the same thing with my clients. They come in, and I get to understand them. Like, how old are you? What's going on? What's your idea of success if we're to work together? And then I go back to childhood and family structures and just ask them a ton of questions. And then, so always a session looks like this. So if we spend the first 20 minutes greeting and have a cognitive conversation, what's going on, what has been your experience since the last session, or if it's the first session, it's all that stuff that I lead up to. And I build a profile. I take session notes, and then halfway through, we switch from the futon to the recliner, and they push back, and I turn on some woo-woo music, and I take them through relaxation, and then basically I bore them into hypnosis. I don't do eye fascination with kids. I do. Little kids, I take into hypnosis with an eye fascination sometimes. But it's, you just lull. I describe it this way. Imagine your conscious mind is a Labrador retriever, and I throw it a stick. And while it's off chasing a stick, I speak to your subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg. Reason, logic, analysis, willpower, decision-making. We think it's in control. The subconscious mind is the bulk of the iceberg below the surface, 90, 95% of what's going on. It keeps our heart rate going, our breathing. Ask any 5-year-old who tried to commit suicide by holding their breath.
It doesn't work.
The subconscious mind is all of those autonomic nervous system operations are carried out. All the involuntary muscles move. So I've thrown a stick for that Labrador retriever that is your conscious mind that you think is in control. And I just start speaking to the subconscious mind. I engage all the senses through an imagery journey, a progressive relaxation. I have you smell the pine trees, feel the breeze in your face, see the clouds, puffy clouds above in the blue sky, sometimes shapes that you recognize, sometimes not. And so it's through that engagement. And then what happens is I overload them with information and they escape. They just dive into trance to escape me.
Mm-hmm.
And then their cheeks flatten out, their breathing changes. I see all the physiological changes. I switch from induction to deepener. So I deepen them with, down a staircase. With each step, you go deeper and deeper, or some other deepening technique. And then once I feel they're sufficiently in the right depth of trance, then I begin to make suggestions. I may carry out a metaphor like the garden of your life, where you rake up all the dead old leaves in that garden that represent people and things that have hurt you or things you don't like about yourself into a big heaping pile and light it on fire. And then plant new seeds. And it's in those new seeds that new fruit is born. And which gives rise to new behavior, a new story. You see, we clear out the old and make room for the new. So that's trance is a place. So 3 things are needed for a hypnotic modality.
Okay.
Authority. See my authority on the wall there.
Right.
And then a doctrine or a paradigm, which is hypnosis and hypnotherapy and all the schooling that I was taught. And you have to feel something. Most people feel super relaxed. So The authority part is the hardest for new hypnotherapists. You have to project, like you know what you're doing, and they don't know anything. They don't know any better. They don't know any. The only thing they've seen is stage hypnosis and stuff. So projecting your authority is super important. I've had people want to argue with me. I'm like, this isn't going to work out. Like, I'm the hypnotherapist and you're the client. So if you want to question everything I say, you can ask questions. That's fine, but don't challenge me on everything. I gotta alpha them, right? I've had people get up and then stand in the doorway and argue with me. Like, listen, I'm going to win this, or you're going to leave. It's just that easy. And they sit back down. I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, good. Now that we got that out of the way, let's right. So, but let's look at some other things against our 3-piece modality.
Okay.
Lab coat and stethoscope, medical school and medical books. You feel something when you go to the doctor? Not a good place to have your blood pressure taken.
No, it's not. And every time I go, they're like, your blood pressure keeps going up. I'm like, because you're scaring me.
So you felt something. You can get good test results, bad test results. You can be afraid. You can be happy. Medicine is hypnosis. It's a modality. Okay. It's a belief system. You go there believing 30% of the time the sugar pill works, makes you heal. 30%. There are studies that show that medical students get sick with the symptoms of the diseases that they're studying.
I've heard that too, and it's amazing.
Yeah, at a high rate. It's called the nocebo effect. There's the placebo effect, and there's the nocebo effect.
Interesting. I've not heard that term before. Yeah, for me, I actually had a doctor friend when I was going in college. He was a bit of an overachiever. He was doing normal junior college and then whatever 4-year at the same time. So we would always joke with him, like, being a doctor, this is very unhealthy kind of thing. Would you recommend this to your patients? Well, and it was one of those, suddenly he looked violently ill. And he was like, it was one of those, I asked him, I'm like, hey, the nocebo, I didn't know this at the time. I'm like, just curious, this looks like a really unique illness. Are you studying this by chance? And he stops and he looks. He opened his books and he's like, oh, I'm like, see, doc, I don't know if I can trust you anymore as a doctor.
Hey, you don't even know that you're what's operating on you.
Right.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot they don't teach them. So how about another one? The white collar or a frock or a hat. The good book, any one of them. The Quran, the Torah, the Bible, right. Bhagavad Gita. Do you feel something when you're in church, temple, or mosque? People sing, dance, pray. Mm-hmm. Religion is a hypnotic modality.
But there has to be a higher power, though. There has to be something. We were not by pure chance able to get to where we are.
Oh, absolutely. There's a higher power.
Okay, good. I want to say my sister she's gotten her BS or BA, I forgot which one it is, for theology. And I told her during her studies, it was really funny. She had asked me the antichrist questions, essentially. Because I told her, I'm like, something's not right. The way the God is portrayed, it's too human. It's like we're trying to impose our will upon an entity that has it's above us.
Well, that's religion,
right?
That's what religion does. So in Taoism, there's a saying: the Tao that can be known is not the true Tao. So any human who professes to know God does not know the true God. Religion is man's feeble attempt to explain that which he cannot. But there is a creator, there's a divine. And you know what's great? I mentioned Dr. Teresa Bullard before and on her show, Mystery Teachings. She's an astrophysicist. Mm-hmm. And that community is largely atheistic and agnostic, but it's changing. She references the Goldilocks effect.
What's that? I'm going to say I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, the Goldilocks effect is the Earth is not too close to the sun, not too far, just right. The moon, not too close, not too far, not too big, not too small, just right to tilt us slightly on our axis and affect our tides. The Jupiter's gravity.
Right. It affects us, whether we like it or not.
Not too much, not too little, to keep the asteroid belt at bay. Right. So there are too many just right conditions.
Yeah.
We did not crawl out of the ocean as slime and evolve into single cell and then multiple cell organisms. And then, Darwin, there's what is it? Oh, there's another subscription service I have on the internet called, it used to be the Great Courses, and now it's called Wondrium. And I'm learning about Darwin. Darwin knew his theory was discredited as he was completing this book. Is there speciation? Absolutely.
Right.
But there's more cooperation in nature than survival of the fittest.
Yeah. That's one of I've always had trouble with that at school too. I'm like, it can't just be that. That's too simple.
Yeah, it's too simple. And so much of what last year was, I had such huge epiphanies, like everything. I'm so glad my parents passed before all of this happened, because, they were of a different era. And if they knew that we were on both sides of World War II, if they knew that, just the stuff that I know now, it's like everything I thought I knew, I was really
all
good
wrong.
at. It's all wrong. It's all a hill of beans that we've been fed. And so anyway, and religion has been an effort to control. All of it's been to control the masses. We're given the illusion of choice and democracy. All of these things are just an illusion. And so, and it's in the name of control. And there's mass hypnosis going on. It's called mass formation. If you Google mass formation, there's a psychologist who's on right now making the rounds, and it makes a very good explanation for what we're experiencing. Mass formation. I call it mass hypnosis, but call it whatever you want. There's something going on.
Well, there is.
And so now, God, it's not some white guy with a beard living in the sky.
Thank you.
God is love. Love is God. It's the same energy. Jesus was an ascended master. Jesus walked the earth with a pure heart, washed the feet of thieves, and knew when the prostitute touched him in the marketplace. These things are all probably have a kernel of truth to them.
Probably.
And we all should attempt to ascend to those teachings. But if you look up Jordan Maxwell, who's an expert on symbols, he'll tell you that God the Father gave us the Son, which gave birth. But it's across many different cultures and predates Christianity, that there was a Father, there was a Son, and the Son was resurrected. The Son is resurrected in the spring, always after a dark winter. And in the spring, the sun gives life. So there's just there's more questions than are answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't spring from nothingness. And we return our souls, our bodies, these bag of bones, this bag of biology is imbued with a soul. And the soul is eternal and the biology is temporary. And we come here, we make contracts with everyone who shows up in our life. We've made a contract to interact and teach each other something. And so I just helped both of my parents transition. My mom was brave, my dad, not so much. And because he didn't know. I remember being a little kid and asking him, what happens when we die? And he says, I don't know. And 50 years later, he still didn't know. And as a result, he was afraid. And I just helped him to try and be curious and to decide what it would be like, and then just go with that and just believe it to be true and create your own paradise and then travel to it. And so.
I was just going to add on. That's something I'm starting to come to realize too. I've had a near-death experience that will take forever, and you got a patient coming up. But the thing that got me was when I was in this, it was a very high dose of THC. It was enough to pretty much take out a horse. I didn't know this at the time. So I'm sitting in this white box above the Milky Way, staring at the Milky Way, and it felt like I was just in a waiting hall. And I heard the softest voice, like a wind wisping through a golden field of corn, just gently touching it, and pretty much said, "It's not your time. You have too much good to bring." And then many symbolic things later, and it was one of those, I never saw anything except the white room, and I'm like, if that's God, that I can get behind.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we go and we it's a dense existence here. It's very difficult on Earth. And we go and rest for a while, and then we get a reassignment. We're here to learn lessons. Our souls are here to learn lessons. The multiverse, there's so much that we don't, because you can't see it just because you're not vibrating on the right vibration. There's much going on that we're not attuned to. We've been dumbed down. Fluoride put in our water, and inoculations and machinations, and so a really good book, the Tibetan book on living and dying, super powerful.
I'm gonna have to re-listen to my own podcast just to pick up all the stuff you've been putting down.
Yeah, the reading list for anyone who wants to open their mind. The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer, The Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss, Myss, Deepak Chopra's Quantum Healing, Dr. Joe Dispenza's, I can't remember the name of the book, but his show Rewired on Gaia is fantastic. You've heard excerpts from it today. Mm-hmm. Those are just some really good ones to get started with. There's one theory that the creator of the universe is not a white bearded guy, but Sophia. Sophia is consciousness itself. Consciousness created the universe. And, even if you subscribe to the Big Bang, there had to be a spark. Mm-hmm. So check out Sophia and the knuckleheads who wrestled the universe away from her, Enlil and Enki. And anyway, it's just a different perspective that the creator is Sophia, and it's a feminine entity. I know.
No, it's funny because I'm thinking of a TikTok joke right now where a lot of dudes are like, God's not a dude. It has to be a woman, because the man's G spot's actually in his ass. Only a woman would do that.
Right. Yeah. And we're moving into an era that's going to reinforce that. The inner goddess will help men find their inner God. We can't do it on our own. We're knuckleheads. We destroy on our way. We destroy a whole lot that doesn't need to be destroyed in order to get where we are. And that's my next book, called The Compass. And it's really how women are going to help men become the best that they can be. Look at women politicians today. They try and outman the men. They don't run on their subtle strengths of cooperation, collaboration, creativity. They try and outman the men. And so I teach in coaching, I teach both men and women emotional intelligence, because that's what's going to be required to survive and thrive in the coming days and weeks, months, years.
It really is. Norman, I feel like we could go for at least 4 hours nonstop, and we barely will hit the surface. You are always welcome on the show whenever you want. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. I'm very grateful. My psychic friend, Laura, who's also a business coach, said, "You need to start a podcast." I get millions of downloads. I said, "I don't want to learn how to be a podcaster in order to be a hypnotherapist." She said, "Okay, here's a couple of resources." And so I'm a podcast guest, and I'm perfectly happy with that. When people are gracious and share their platform, I've got a story to tell, and I'm going to start doing it from the stage again.
After a hiatus, I didn't want to be tainted by the politics. I left all of that, but I'm ready now. I have a new message and I'm ready to share it with the world because the power of hypnotherapy is organic, non-invasive, and natural. And it can help so many people with so many different things. And so I just want to evangelize on that message.
Absolutely awesome. So I usually have 3 going out questions. I just have like 2 instead. Someone aspiring to be like you down your path, you've found the thing that you're calling. What are some tips, tricks, or advice you give them?
Be fearless.
Okay.
I'm working 65 hours a day and I'm a week and it doesn't feel like work. I'm so, yeah. Wow.
I want to say a day, man, you are next level quantum going on here.
That's some quantum shit right there. But it doesn't feel like work. I'm in the zone. And there was a point where like I'm attracting these really difficult cases. And the first few that I got, I'm like, what on earth can I tell this woman, who's got mast cell disease and Lyme disease, and she can't leave her house and she's crippled up and everything. And I meditated and I sat quiet and still. The same advice I give to others: be quiet and still, listen, and it will come to you. And then what comes to you, go with it, 100%, both feet.
No, that's perfect. That's this whole episode has just been enlightening. If that's what I'm doing, that soft spoken voice that we're like, oh, it's just our thought. It's like, no, that's that one moment your subconscious got through and you should have listened to it.
Well, that's right. And you're destroying the old and you're creating a new with laser-like focus. That's that tower card. Look it up. Study that tower card a little bit and feel, it'll help you feel better about where you are, because it's scary. It's scary to fly from the nest. I haven't worked as an employee since 2000.
Okay.
But when I left the employment of the medical association, and I was no longer an employee, it was scary AF.
Yes, it is.
And because, who's going to care for my, all my stuff, all the fringe benefits and stuff. And so there have been times that have been challenging, but for 21 years, I call my own shots, and I don't rely on someone for the dollars, the energy. Money is energy, for the energy that I need. And I make sure that I get the right energetic exchange.
Perfect. Okay. Where can everyone contact you? They're probably just sitting on the side of their seats like, okay, well, how do we get Norman?
I'm branded by my name. So my website is normanplotkin.com. I have a new website that's branded with my second book, mastermindmasterlife.com. Okay. And in there, I got coaching. I got custom hypnotic tracks that I can make for you. I got tarot card readings. I've got a custom poetry. Like, you want a poem? You want someone to write a poem for you and put your name on it and give it to somebody else? Yeah, I got you covered. Anyway, so there's a whole host of things that are super fun on Mastermind Master Life. My social is all my name. I got Facebook, Norman Plotkin Inc. IG is Norman Plotkin CHT, certified hypnotherapist. I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube. I think it's Norman Plotkin Inc. And I'm posting meditations and all kinds of stuff there. It's not super big yet, but it's growing. So
that's good.
Yeah. Yep. So Norman Plotkin will, believe it or not, there's a couple of others out there, but hypnotherapist, CHT Inc. Those are the modifiers that'll help you find me.
Awesome. And I'll be sending you an automatic email so you can send me all the links to that too for them.
Cool.
Absolute honor and a pleasure.
Likewise.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations. You're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.